you doing, puppies? Welcome back to Kooshdaakaa Garage, everyone, and Happy New Year. Woo! Oh, that's a slushy beer. Left that one outside all night. Hell yeah. All right, I got a fun one for you today. So, I think I'm going to make this a yearly tradition now. We're at the beginning of every year. I kind of give you a little recap of what happened the previous year, what we got planned for this next year. So, I got a fun one for you today. Look at that list of things we got to talk about. So we did quite a bit of work in 2021. Beer slushy. Let's go ahead and get to this video. What are we going to do? Let's go ahead and recap 2021 and then talk about some ambitions for 2022. 2021 was the year of grinding for me. I pretty much all I did is grind this year non-stop on all 3 rigs in the camper, to the point that I didn't go overlanding this summer just so I can work on the truck. So we started off 2021 by working on, well, during this time in wintertime, it's kind of like I just do the easy stuff and try to coast on videos that I have already pre-recorded, because right now there's like, the snow berm is about as tall as I am now, or taller than me. There's like 3 feet of snow on top of one of my trucks, and it's just miserable to work in right now. Won't find me under the truck unless I have to be. And I design and schedule my year so that I don't have to. I try to get all the work done that needs to be done prior to that first snowfall, so that I can have a relatively comfortable winter and just deal with stuff as it comes up, if it comes up. So we try to put in the work while we can. And so I started off by working on the old Chevy Silverado K1500. It's a 1992, that beautiful Chevy 350 that my buddy and I put in there probably about 12 years ago when I bought it. And there's always been these cosmetic things that I've wanted to do to the truck that I just have not done. Like the bumpers, had those old rusty chrome bumpers that were just falling apart. If you check out the videos, there's like nothing left of them anymore. It was an old boat truck, so got rid of those. Got a nice Sherman and a Fay, I think, bumper on there, all nice and pre-painted black. Came with new lights on the rear. Gives one's attention. And then I repainted the grill, put a nice billet aluminum Chevy bow tie on the grill, updated the lights with a new light assembly and new blinker assembly, put on a new bug guard, put on some rain drip guards on the windows, and fixed the door mostly. I have some bent hinges, but I changed the pins, changed my broken door handle, and I messed with the exhaust too, but I haven't posted that with the exhaust. I messed with the exhaust a bit. In one of the videos you'll see the straight pipe 350, and I was bombing around back in one of my favorite camping spots on my birthday, and we're having a fire back there, and I drove over a little stump. That muffler was loose anyways, ripped it off, so it was straight piped. So I figured, you know, I love messing with my exhaust. If anybody out there knows me, you know that I rarely stick with the same exhaust for very long. I'm always messing with something. I like the different exhaust notes. I like experimenting with things. It's just what I do. Well, since that old Summit Racing high flow muffler was off anyways, I decided to try glass pack on this guy, because I haven't done it ever on this truck. I ran Flowmaster 44 series, a Flowmaster 40 series, straight piped it. I straight piped it with just the blown out cat converter, because it's just basically this big metal chamber that gives the truck kind of a blah sound, like real like throaty kind of blah sound when you get on it, but it takes down the higher notes at idle, so if that makes sense to you. So in the recent video I messed with just straight pipe, and I think I messed with just having the blown out cat converter on there, and then with the, right now I have the cat converter, blown out cat converter, and then on the end of that I have the Flowmaster, sorry, cherry bomb. Now that sounds pretty cool. The one thing that I didn't do, I just kind of ran out of time and moved on to other things, is I wanted to take off that blown out cat converter and just do a straight pipe through to the cherry bomb there and see what that sounded like. But haven't done that yet, and now it's winter time, so that video, we'll see. I might put it out ahead of time, or I might wait until the weather calms down a bit and take off that end piece, because that's really the only thing that I wanted to do is take off that cat converter and just run it with the cherry bomb. So we did that to the Chevy. We did a little bit of work on the Toyota, changed the spark plugs and the wires on it. That's pretty much all I did. The truck's been running pretty good, but this next year I got some work I need to do on that we'll get to. And with all of that stuff done in basic maintenance, like ready to rock for summertime, instead of loading up and going to Prince of Wales, oh, sorry, got to back up. So we did that work here. And now, as you see in the camper, it looks quite a bit different than it did last year. Last year it was all white, and you could see my breath when I was talking, and all I had was my buddy propane heater, and it sucked. There was water damage in the cab over. There was so much condensation on the walls that pretty much all the wood was rotten, and so I had to rip all of it out. Ripped everything out down to the frame and re-insulated it with a 2-part spray insulation. I put in a brand new diesel heater that's warming the place up right now, and that thing is absolutely phenomenal. Maybe I'll give you a little walk through of the camper here in a second. But it really needed to be done. All the holes need to be patched up. The 2-part spray insulation, which is what they use in marine applications. It's a closed cell, so it doesn't let any water, air, or bugs through. It's rigid, so it adds nice rigidity to the camper, and it definitely raised the R value up. And because it is a spray foam insulation, it adheres itself to the aluminum corrugated or exterior, and so there's no air gap in between the metal and the insulation, so it eliminated all that condensation that was building up. And it was bad too. When I was ripping apart the camper, you could wring out that pink insulation and there was just water dripping down the walls. It was so freaking bad. So redid the whole camper and made it look a little nicer. Let me just give you a little walkthrough real quick. To start with the front here, the challenge with the cab over is that the plywood on the cab over sits pretty much directly on the metal that's underneath it, under the sheeting. There's no space for insulation underneath it, so pried it up the best that I could. And because this is an old camper, it's a 1982 Perris Valley Camper, everything was screwed and glued from the outside in, and then they skinned it. So I didn't want to rip out that plywood because it would have really messed up my frame. So I pried it up a little bit, sprayed some foam under there, but ultimately my insulation fix, because a lot of insulation was building up here, was 2-inch styrofoam insulation. And I got a thin little board on that, and then I got my 4-inch memory foam mattress over that. Re-walled in everything, as you see, did everything, spray insulation absolutely everywhere, on the ceilings, on the sides, on the roof. And then because there was enough gap there on the roof, because the roof has a little bit deeper frame, I reused some of my old foam insulation and just double layered it. So I got extra insulation on the roof, and that's why it can be like 75 degrees in the camper and there'll still be a bunch of snow on the roof because it's so well insulated. Let's see here, I still need to do lights. I just got my Christmas lights up here right now for lighting. I still need to wire in some LED strips. Went with this nice colored board stuff for my frame to frame in my windows. I recently put in 2 25-watt solar panels with a charger. Nothing's like made pretty or anything right now. I still got to add the finishing touches. Decided to do a little solar paddle controller, which has helped out a lot, and that will run my diesel heater down here. Will run my diesel heater pretty much indefinitely. As long as I have it on low, it'll run it all day, all night, for days. I think the longest that I have ran it was on a 1 tank, and I think it ran my 10-liter tank for about a week or a week and a half. and you don't need to start your truck when I got these solar panels running. The only thing I can't do, which kind of bums me out, is my cooler down here. It's a 12-volt cooler, and that just drains the freaking batteries like nobody's business. So I can't run both of them at the same time. But, you know, it being winter time when I'm running the heater, I don't really need to. I can just throw the cooler outside and it'll stay just fine. Let's see, one thing you'll notice here, turn off this light, move it around. One thing you'll notice is I took out the cabinets on top there. I redid the sink, actually added a nice faucet there, and I don't have it all hooked up right now, but I have a 7-gallon tank that goes under there. I have a little switch so I can just turn on my faucet whenever. It is a pressure sensing faucet, so it being plugged in right now without any water in there, it would just run the faucet constantly and drain my battery, so I put it on a switch as well. So when I do have water in there and it's summertime, I can flick the switch on, and as long as that valve is closed, it's not going to run the faucet, which is pretty handy. What else did we do here? Hung up my coat hanger right there, and I took out that huge cupboard that was in here, and I decided not to replace it because one thing that always tripped me out about this camper, since this camper is made for a 6.5 foot bed and I have an 8 foot bed, is that it's kind of small, and so I wanted to open it up more, give it more of an open concept. And in its place I put my grandpa's old action packer, so that, you know, I could have grandpa with me in spirit and have some of his old tools with me. Also my stepdad, who's no longer with us, this is his old shelf, and it hasn't been in use in over 20 years. I used this cargo net on top there just to try something a little different. So far it works pretty good. When it's in a rotation, I usually just keep blankets and socks and towels, toilet paper and stuff up there. Stays nice and aerated and dry. Works out pretty good. Put in these curtains here, which were like nice cheap curtains on Amazon. They reflect the heat well, to the point that you can see back here it's all built up with ice, even though it's toasty as hell in the camper. So that's been really nice, really great addition to the camper. Absolutely love these blinds. That's what it looks like when it's down, and it also blacks it out in here, so it stays nice and dark in summertime and doesn't let that light in. Rewired up, reused this from the old build, got a little 12 volt there, and I use that to charge my phone. This is the remote for my heater, so if I wanted to turn it off in the middle of the night or turn it on or adjust it, I didn't have to get up, I can just use that. Still got my breaker. And what else? That's gonna be pretty much it for the interior. Just to let you know, see what it looks like. This thing has been great. I got a window vent thing there, and I was always getting dripped on. There's always a bunch of condensation, but this thing helps reflect that quite a bit. I did the same thing here for that man hatch. Underneath the bubble wrap there, I have some more styrofoam that's form-fitting, so it keeps the heat locked in. Also, you'll see down on the floor, I cut the floor completely out and I dropped it all the way down to the bed, and then I framed it in with 2x4s. So now, you know, I gained probably 4 or 5 inches of headspace, so I can actually stand up straight in here now, and I got a full truck bed for storage. Lined it with that Reflectix stuff. It's not as insulated on the bottom. I was kind of insulating the bottom as kind of an afterthought, but it still stays pretty warm. Also, in the rear here, it kind of worked out great because I hard mounted the camper to the bed using 4x4s, and then I took this old 6x6 or 4x6 that I had and used that to support the back, and it just slid right in just perfect. So if I did add insulation beforehand, it might not fit as well so it'd be a little too tall. Show you what I mean on the camper being hard mounted down. Hope you can't see it, so yeah, you can see it on this side. Use 4x4s, and then use some Vicor to keep it from rotting on me. And now the camper is super stable, super stable. Just notice I got new tail lights, LEDs. Buddy gave those to me for free. They worked out pretty nice. What I like about them is it relocated the backup light to the top instead of the bottom. Hooked back up my rear camera, so now I can see where I'm going. Thing was a great addition. I could do Project LB7 spool up, and that started off with a turbo rebuild, and since I was taking off the turbo and rebuilding it anyways and giving it a port and polish, I got a brand new downpipe. I got a BD full bore driver side exhaust manifold, and with that I got an EGT probe and gauge, and then I ported both exhaust manifolds. I port matched the up pipes to both the manifolds and the turbo, and then I port matched the turbo to the downpipe, and then I did a nice port job on the turbo itself, rebuilt the internals, put on a brand new billet aluminum compressor wheel, and then I took it for a test run. Noticed that I was burning about 10 degrees hotter, although the truck was running just infinitely smoother, like fucking butter, so smooth. A lot of these old diesels, you know, they sound old and tired, but not after I did that. It just purred like a kitten, just like a content kitten, just purring along. But I was running a little hot, and one of my injectors wanted to stick open still. And injector 4 always would want to stick open when it was under load. And although it ran significantly cooler and the injector wasn't quite as pissed off, there was definitely an issue. And I ran some tests, noticed that my coolant hoses were super hard and that my coolant reservoir was bubbling over. It was pressurized basically. And so I ran some tests, detected carbon dioxide in there, which means, you know, I either had a blown head gasket or a lifted injector. And it's really hard to tell what it is unless you take it all apart. And so I wasn't going to gamble with it and just do injectors and then put it all back together only to find out that the head gasket needed to be changed. So I figured while it was in there, and because this truck is about 200,000 miles on it and it's Pig's 20th birthday, I might as well just go full, do the full 9. I got new gaskets on there, put some studs on there, and then while I had the heads out, I went ahead and lapped the valves, did a real mild port and polish. Basically just took down the casting and anything my nail can get snagged on, and anything that looked like it was an unnecessary obstruction or a casting flaw or just leftover casting slag that was in there. I knocked it down, straightened it out a little bit, gave it a little bit more room to breathe, a little smoother, and then I put those Lincoln Diesel Specialty 45 over sack nozzle injectors and then put it all back together. Also put in a PPE fuel rail plug as well, since everything was already taken apart. And that video is for all this. That's that's Project LB7 Duramax spool up. Walk you through absolutely everything. Got a video for everything, including just taking down the downpipe, just taking off the manifolds, just taking out the turbo, everything. Pretty extensive series. That's what I worked on all summer, and that's what I've been putting out since then, every week. So now that I have it all put back together, how does it run? road up in the mountains here, so I can't do any lunches. Plus I got a camper, so just turned around. Phenomenal. This truck has never ran so great since I bought it. I've now owned this truck for this month will be 4 years. Yeah, this will be January 2018 I think is when I got it. So 4 years now. Been a long journey, and it's always needed injectors as far as I could tell. And here's why I think that. So I was looking at the maintenance record when I got this truck. The rear main seal was changed, and when I got it, it was still leaking out of the rear main seal. And when I pulled the injectors out, I realized, it wasn't the head gaskets. It was an actual injector that was installed incorrectly in 2004 is the last time the injectors were done, according to the maintenance records. When the injector was put in the cup, they didn't lube it up. They just crammed it in there. And I'm assuming they didn't lube it up because the O-ring that seals the injector to the cup was pinched and lifted up. And so therefore the injector was never fully seated. So therefore the cup was never really fully seated. And with all that pressure exploding the piston, it popped the cup out a little bit, pressurized the cylinder head, which pressurized the crankcase, which caused the oil to leak out the rear main seal. And so after installing the injectors correctly, redoing the head gaskets, putting on studs, my rear main seal no longer leaks. So that's nice. But the truck now, with everything said and done, is incredibly powerful, spools up super freaking quick, which I want, because the fans of the channel know that I am I'd like to take this thing out overlanding, and in my performance application is very low down in the RPM range, because I spend a lot of time crawling on old logging roads with the camper on it. So the camper likes to swing back and forth, and it's loose gravel. It's all like washed out 30-year-old logging roads that are grown over, so we're not ripping through, we're not throwing dirt everywhere, we're not rooster tailing everywhere we go. We're just taking our time, plotting our routes, trying to get up this mountain, find a nice place to camp or hunt or fish or whatever, for however long we're going to be there. And so that was the whole point of me wanting to make my stock turbo light up as fast as possible. That's why I ported it, so I can get that exhaust in and out quicker. That's why I put on a lighter, more aggressive billet aluminum compressor wheel on that turbo, so that it's pulling in more air at lower RPMs. The craziest thing that I noticed is when I put the truck back together, got it running, I put my tune back into stock just so I could see how it performed. And it performed like it normally does on tune 2, my PPE accelerator, which is a 90 horsepower and 160 pounds of torque tune. So it performed absolutely phenomenal. Kind of took me back a little bit, and since then I put it back on my tune 2 on the PPE tuner, and it runs great. I still have a stock transmission, so I'm not going any higher than that, and so far I haven't put it in the limp mode and tune 2, and I have not had the balls to take it any further past tune 2 because I'm not prepared to drop 10 grand on a new transmission. And besides that, I would take that one in the shop, and every shop that I have gone to has really low garage doors, so I'd have to remove the camper anyways, and I'm not prepared to do that yet. So I'm trying to hold on to this stock transmission as long as possible. If what I heard is correct, the transmission was relatively new when I bought it. The shop that owned it put in a stock transmission for some reason, probably because it's cheaper, and it was just a shop truck. So it's still holding strong, but the truck runs really, really smooth, gets up and goes. Next is EFI Live tuning on this truck, because I have those 45 over injectors, and I noticed that my fuel mileage suffered quite a bit by putting on bigger injectors. So after I did the turbo, my fuel mileage went up from like 10.5 to about 14.5, driving in town, and I've never gotten good mileage driving in town. I live in a small town. It's constant starts and stops, slowing down, speeding up, just awful on fuel mileage no matter what I've driven. When I take this thing out to Prince of Wales and go overlanding, before I was getting about 14 and a half, 14 and 3/4, depending on the slopes that I was driving on. But there's a lot longer strips of road that I'd be driving without starts and stops, and so I just keep her in 5th gear and keep her around 1600 RPMs, and pig would just sip on the fuel. So getting 14 and a half in town, when normally I'd get like 10 and a half, 11, sometimes even 12 if I babied it, was pretty awesome. But now that I have the bigger injectors on there, I'm getting about 10 and a half miles per gallon again. Granted, it started to snow pretty shortly after I got it all put back together, so truck's still adjusting. I'll revisit that here this next spring once it warms back up and the roads aren't so icy and snowy. So we'll try to get some accurate readings for you, and I still owe you a full-on video with doing all the testing and everything. So I got a new OBD2 scanner that links up to my phone, so you can see all the gauges and everything, and we can do some takeoffs. We can see all kinds of cool stuff. Do some exhaust clips and things like that. So yeah. Okay, that was Project LB7 Duramax spool up, and we've done some other things after that. One thing I noticed after this truck had full compression again is that my starter was on its way out. So got a brand new reman AC Delco starter on the truck. I upgraded my LED lights to full 360 LEDs so I don't have that nasty shadow. I got a video coming up on that as well. I'm going to show the difference between the halogens and a couple different sets of LED lights. And whatever one I like best, I'm going to keep and pick, and then the next set of LED lights is going to go in the Chevy since they use the same lights. Let's see, I also have recorded but haven't put out a new transmission cooler. Got a giant ass transmission cooler, and I actually have that video all put together, and I was going to release that one, but then I realized it's New Year's, so I should probably do an update video here, and that transmission cooler video will be the next video in 2021. Will be my first install video of 2022. Sorry, we're in 2022 now. Also, I got new top LED cab lights. I have new tail light assemblies with LED lights in there. And what else did I do to pig here? Oh yeah, changed out an oil seal on the bottom, or on the transfer case, changed the fluid in the differential in the transfer case, and in the front differential as well. So that's all nice and running smooth again. Changed all my filters, of course, and oils and stuff. I don't think I recorded those. And I think that is fixed my tailgate. Tailgate works for the first time. Also recorded that. Haven't put that out yet, so that'll be coming up here pretty soon. And I think I recorded a couple other things. I just can't remember what they are right now. So that'll bring us into 2022. What do we have planned for 2022? Well, we're going overlanding again this summer. Hell yeah, we are. We're going back to Prince of Wales. We're going to spend a couple of months doing that. So since we're going overlanding, we have some things that we need to do to the truck to make sure that we have the best experience possible without breaking down. And that is really how this channel started to come about. Not a whole lot of LB7 content out there on the net, so we got to create our own, right? Another drop in the ocean. And so continuing on in spirit with that, and because there's nothing worse than breaking down in the middle of nowhere on a road that nobody goes to but a few times a year, and like a 4 days hike out to the main road, which you may or may not see people for days on that road either. Just bad news. You don't want to do that. So things we're going to do this year in preparation: we are going to do the ball joints, The steering gearbox, because that's leaked ever since I've gotten it, and you know that is powered by the power steering, which is hooked up to the hydro boost. So you know, if you're always losing power steering fluid, then your brakes are never fully compressed. So we want full compression in our braking system and in our steering system, and it's just annoying when that thing leaks all over the place, you know, especially because I take it on the ferry and it wants to leak over the ferry, so I got to plug it up with a rag and change that out every once in a while and clean up any spill before I leave, just so I don't leave a mess for somebody else later. So it'll be nice to get that finally fixed once and for all. So ball joints, gearbox, trans cooler's already in, but you're going to see that video. I also got a aluminum radiator that I'm going to put in there as well, because keeping this thing nice and cool in hot summer months when we're climbing up these really steep mountains is absolutely paramount. We don't want this truck overheating. We don't want to overstress the components. We want it to run nice and cool. So big nice aluminum trans cooler and aluminum radiator I think will be just perfect for it. Let's see, we got rear tail lights here. I'm pretty sure I recorded it, but I got some free tail light assembly from one of my buddies who's cleaning out a shop he works at, and they didn't have a truck that I went to, so they're gonna throw it away. And so my buddy's like, screw that, I got a guy who has a truck that'll fit. And so now they're on pig. Put some LED lights on there, and I also picked up an LED strip, a 60-inch strip to put under the tailgate. That'll have an additional backup light as well as turn signals and brakes. All I really wanted as far as like nice LED strip for backup lights, because now that I have my backup camera handy, it's nice to have extra light when I'm backing up at night. But the LED lights in there right now do a wonderful job. I wanted some extra bright light, so that'll be a fun one to install. That's going to plug directly into my trailer plug there. So pig is pretty much mechanically sound. There's just a few odds and ends. Now it's time to focus on more fun things like fog lights and maybe do some body work. I don't know if I'm going to get to it this year, but what I would really like to do is cut out the old rocker panels and weld in some new rocker panels on both my trucks, and just get that taken care of, because they are both getting pretty freaking bad now. I'd also like to, but I don't know if I'm going to get to it unless I get, I don't know, maybe I will, but I'd like to either do a full rebuild of the Chevy 350 or just do a top half end rebuild like I did on Pig here. I actually wanted to do the 350 first, but Pig demanded that she go first, because I wanted to get some more porting experience in on old 350 that was a lot easier to work on than expensive Duramax, but you know, it's not what the universe had planned, so here we are. So in that one, I'd like to do basically the same thing. I'd like to port match the TBI to the intake manifold. I got a Holley TBI, an Edelbrock intake manifold. I'd like to get those ports matched. I'd like to match the ports of the intake manifold to the heads, which I know, you know, that's not really going to net me like any good gains or anything. Mostly it's just going to be working on my porting skills. I might gain like 3 CFM from matching the intake port to the head port. That's not where the real magic happens with porting. It happens inside the heads. And the heads, I think, are still 193 or 194 swirl port heads, which I can hear people groaning now that know anything about the swirl port heads. They're like, oh god, worst flowing heads ever. It's like, but they actually aren't that bad. They are designed after old diesel technology. If you've ever pulled off some 12 valve Cummins heads and you flipped them upside down after removing those valves, you're going to see a swirl ramp in there. All about those swirl numbers. The swirl is where all that bottom end torque comes from. If you want to get more top end out of your 12 valve Cummins, you got to remove the swirl ramps, but you're going to do that by sacrificing a lot of your bottom end power. So you'd be sacrificing bottom end power for top end power. And I think those heads work just fine for my purposes. I drive it around town, take it on dump runs, get firewood. You know, it's a work truck, and I don't rally it around. I don't live down south. I don't take it to the track. I don't race people with it. I took it to Prince Wales before I had Pig quite a few times, and it was a great mountain truck. I just loved living in the low RPMs, and performed absolutely wonderful, even with this camper on the back of it. So optimizing those ports, I have heard and read, really brighten those things up, and you can push them to about 5,500 RPMs before they gas out. Now in stock form they gas out around 4,500 RPMs. I might be pushing it a little further with the mods that I have on the truck, but for experimentation purposes and just to get some tooling time in, I am going to rework those heads, and I'm also going to get slightly better cam. I think I'm going to stick with a flat tappet cam, a little more aggressive profile, but I want to match it as closely to the heads and to the overall RPM range and the parts that I have. So I can't go too crazy with it. Can't have too much lift because the heads can't take too much lift anyways. I think you can probably push those up to, I don't know, like 480 lift, maybe 450 to 480. We'll see. All I'm going to really do with that is I'm going to polish up the ramp. I think I'm going to take the lip down on the ramp a little bit. It actually has a surprisingly deep roof, or tall roof, big bowl. So I'll polish that out. I think there's a couple areas I can straighten out that'll just give me a little bit better performance, a little smoother transitions, a little more air through it, and just do some fine tuning there. And I think with the flat tappet cam and new springs and lifters, of course, and the full port and polish, the truck should be in pretty good shape. I think should be in pretty good shape. Of course, we'll port and polish the exhaust side as well, intake side in the bowls, and just see what it do. I know a lot of people are probably screaming at their phone right now telling me to got cut off mid-sentence, ran out of beer, and my battery died. I think I'm gonna drink a local brew here, Devil's Club IPA. Not a huge IPA fan, but I like our local breweries. Kind of citrusy. I like it. That one's not bad. So where did we leave off? Let's see, Chevy 350, port polishing, rebuilding the top half engine. Yeah, so I know there's a lot of people who are probably screaming at me, telling me to throw away those heads, get some Vortex heads, and put a solid roller cam in it, and then be done with it. I am down with that, because ultimately, it's obviously where the best performance is going to come from for the 350. Here's my holdup, though. Here is my holdup. One, heads, I can get them from Summit Racing for $600-700 plus shipping to Alaska, so $800 maybe. And then I gotta get a new intake manifold, which those used to be like $150 or so, but now for the Vortex heads it's like $500, at least for the ones that I was seeing. Maybe you can find them cheaper. And roller cam conversion would be about another $1,000. And so now I'm up a couple $1,000 here, and if I'm at $2,000, what's stopping me from doing an LS conversion? I can get a 5.3 LS for pretty cheap and have a lot more power starting off with a lot more potential. So that's kind of what I was struggling with. It's like, well, I really like the Chevy 350 platform. It's nostalgic, it's old school classic, it has a crap ton of power on the bottom end and is a great performing engine, and I really like the way that this engine performs in my truck for the stuff that I do with it. Whereas the port and polish, just port matching everything and polishing it up, I already have all the tools, already have all the bits now, and I want to gain that experience anyways. And I have the gasket kit already for the engine rebuild, so I can do that without spending any money. But if I just replace the flat tappet cam, or just get a slightly more aggressive one with some new springs and lifters, of course, I can get a nice comp cams or the like for about $400 shipped to my door. So $400 versus a couple $1,000 is kind of what I'm playing with there. And Me being me, I think you guys realize I like experimenting, and I like doing things in small steps so I can see how they perform. Not only just for myself, because I'm a curious guy and I like experimenting with things and just seeing how things perform, and I like the idea of just optimizing what I got. I also know a lot of you guys are the same way. A lot of you guys are not going for top performance. Your truck's never going to see a drag strip. It's never going to be a sled puller. But what it is going to do is it's going to tote you around your farm. It's going to haul bales of hay. It's going to haul wood. It's going to haul tools. It's going to go on dump runs. And you may get the occasional grocery run every now and then. Take it out camping, whatever. Off-roading. It's a work truck. So that's more what I do. I like adding in my performance parts, a few fun bolt-ons. Mostly they are work trucks for me. And $2,000 is gonna. That's how much the ferry tickets are gonna cost for me to go overland in this summer. So I'm not quite there yet. We'll see how I like the truck after I do this rebuild, and if it runs great, then I probably won't do anything to it. If I'm not happy with it, then I'll probably keep messing with it over the future. I'll probably mess with it one way or the other anyways, because that's the kind of guy that I am. I will say though that in its current state, with what I put into it so far, which is it has a tune, it has a Holley TBI, has a Edelbrock intake manifold, has some shorty headers, free-flowing exhaust, 5-speed manual transmission, and has Mr. Good wrench short block that my buddy and I put in there probably about 12 years ago now. And I will say that it smoked the tires off a newer LS engine that was in stock. I'm assuming it was a stock truck with the lift-in tires, which lifting tires don't make your trucks any faster, it makes them a little bit slower. But that guy was pissed. Tell you what, gets smoked by an old banged up Chevy 350. The guy was not happy. Started pulling out in first gear. By second gear, I was ahead of him. By third gear, he's in my rearview mirror. It's like, man, granted, if we took it past any faster than we went, he probably would have caught up to me eventually. But not 0 to 60. 0 to 60, I had him all the way. And then, we had to slow down and merge lanes and things. But I'll say it's a fun truck as it is, and for the engine, I just want to make it run nice and good and solid and optimize, do some fun things to it to curb my own curiosity. And the main thing that needs to be done to the Chevy 350 is I need to pull the bed, and I need to beef up the rear frame. It was an old boat truck, and it has rotted out significantly right over the shocks. And so right now I have new rear shock mounts ready to be installed once I patch up that frame. And I also have some steel for pardon me, some new steel for fish plates, so that I can fix up that area of the frame, recoat everything, repaint everything, sand everything down, maybe put some rust conversion on there, repaint the frame, get it solid again. And once that's solid, put back together, and that's where the fun comes in. So I think what I want to do ultimately, we're at pretty much at the end of the list here. What I want to do ultimately, and I'm still thinking about this is kind of long-term plan. I'm thinking I want to take this camper off the pig, put it back on the red Chevy, because the red Chevy, I bought this camper for that truck initially, and because of those frame issues, I wanted to fix those. That's part of the reason why I got pig. And then I just fell in love with LB7 Duramax and just went whole hog fixing this truck. I haven't been spending the time on the 350, but I want to come full circle, fix that frame. I'm really thinking about putting this camper back on there because it looks great on there. The Chevy has a 6.5 foot bed. This camper's made for a 6.5 foot bed. I can still close the tailgate. Looks sharp, fits great. I really like how the truck drives with it. I'll probably do airbags because I upgraded the half-ton suspension to 3/4 ton suspension, but it doesn't have a helper spring or airbags. And I think this camper rides nice in the back of Pig because Pig has the, not only does the Pig have helper springs, but also has the airbags. But the helper springs are rarely engaged. It's mostly just the airbags doing everything. And then once the camper is over back on the red Chevy, I think the camper, well, that'll just be for putting around town for the most part, but I want to do something new and different with Pig. Now, I know in the past I've talked about possibly converting Pig from a dually to a single wheel, but after much deliberation and all of my friends and family talking me out of it, I'm just going to keep it a dually because it looks cool, it drives great, and it's considerably less expensive to not convert it, right? So I'm thinking I'll probably do a little suspension lift, maybe a combination of a body and a suspension lift, do bigger tires, do 255/85 R16s, which comes out to about 33 inches tall, 10 inches wide. I'll need a rear spacer in back. So I have a little more aggressive stance, a little more clearance from the ground, which will be really nice on some of those roads. And then I think I'm going to build a box on back, a little doghouse, a little sleeper. Nothing too big, like I won't be able to stand up in it. It'll be more of a sleeper, more of a canopy style, but I'll design it after the camper. So I think I want it to look like this because I really like this vibe in here. It feels like a cabin. It doesn't feel like a camper, and even though it's small, it doesn't feel small. It feels spacious. My buddy and I were hanging out here the other night having a couple of beers and bullshitting after we got done working on his vehicle, and he was like, man, he's like, that's all you really need. It has everything you need. It's comfortable. It looks nice. It's warm. Yeah, I agree. So I think I'm going to do maybe a smaller, shorter box on the back of Pig that fills the full 8-foot bed and can sleep, 2 to 3 people relatively comfortable. And I'll 2-part spray insulate it, give it a nice solid frame. I'll probably build it out of wood because I like the insulation properties of wood. And materials are expensive as hell, but wood is cheaper, more malleable, and really I like the way it looks, and I really dig that cabin feel. And yeah, that's what I want. I think it's going to look pretty sweet when I do that. If I do that, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do that. And the reason why I want to do that to this truck and not the other one is Pig. I really like taking Pig on these long extended trips to Prince of Wales. It's more powerful. It drives like a Cadillac. It's a big diesel, so it lives in the low RPMs anyways, and it gets better fuel mileage. But if it was shorter and lighter, it wouldn't tip so bad on some of those real nasty roads. It wouldn't bounce back and forth, and it being shorter, I can actually dig in a little deeper in some of those more grown over roads without having to turn around or stop every few minutes to cut branches and low-hanging trees and shit out of my way. And it's fun. I like building these things, like designing them, like trying them out, and I like recording it and taking you on the adventure with me. It's all part of the fun of this this channel, right? Working on our trucks, rebuilding campers, going out and playing, going out and having a good time, go play with our toys. So I think that's the long-term plans for that. Still have some work to do on the Toyota, some basic maintenance. I think we got to change the brakes out, redo the shocks, the suspension. Gonna need an oil change, new fuel filter, and then we'll see how it's running after that. It's still having some backfiring issues, so maybe it might need some injectors too, or maybe it's just a clogged fuel filter. I'm not sure. We're gonna try to figure that out. It has a ripped boot on the CV axle, so that's gonna need to be changed at some point. And the Toyota should be in pretty good shape after that. That engine will need a full rebuild at some point, but it's still running good. It just leaks a lot. Alright guys, I think that's going to do it. I have worked through this list. I've rambled enough. My dogs are bored. One of them's stomping their pot, maybe the other one's passed out. So I think it's a good sign to quit while I'm ahead, unless I'm already too far behind to catch up anyways. So, been a hell of a year. Did a lot of grinding. Check out all those videos if you're so inclined. I made a video on everything that I talked about, and they are all on my channel, so you can check those out at your leisure. I think that's gonna do it, guys. I think we're done here. I gotta go get back to doing something before I lose this daylight. So that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you found it entertaining. And I look forward to 2022. Hope you do as well. I'll see you on the next one.